Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm actually really honored that you said that you'd do this interview. You said you haven't done an interview before.
No, I've interviewed probably going on 200 people at this point. And I've been on a number of like radio shows, where I was part of a panel, but it wasn't necessarily a one-on-one interview like this. This is the first true like one-on-one interview that I've done where I'm, being interviewed and not doing the interview. So thank you very much. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Well, to get us started off, would you go ahead and introduce yourself and your channel?
Sure. Well, I've been on mine since August 2017, which I think is about the exact same time you came on.
Yeah, around there, yes.
Yeah, so we're pretty much within a month or two of each other for having, 5 years or so on the platform, almost. And in that time, I'd never really used social media before because I saw Facebook and all these other sites as just worthless, not worth my time whatsoever. And also, during the Obama administration, I just felt like we were under such a magnifying glass and speak your mind, And so when Minds came out, it really caught my attention. I got to give credit to Sticks, Hex, and Hammer for being the one that actually pushed me over the edge to make an account. So thank you, Sticks, if you're listening. And ever since then, I've really enjoyed my time. I feel free to say whatever I want. And not only do I not fear the admins, I am friends with many of them. I saw you just did an interview with John recently.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
John's a great guy. I DM with him all the time. At least once a week, I send him something I found interesting or bounce something off him or whatever. But, in pretty close contact with him. And Jack's been on my show a few times. And so has Bill, as well as John. So, yeah, I don't have that fear. It's not like, over on Facebook, you've got Zuckerberg, who's completely, shielded from any type of interaction with the users. Here on Minds, they go out of their way to make us, be known that they appreciate what we do. And they don't want to ban us. They want to give us more and more power and reward us with tokens and you name it. So just a phenomenal site. And then a few years ago, I don't remember exactly when my first one, it has to be 3+ years ago, maybe 4. I thought it would be interesting to sit down and interview some people. And so I had a passing friendship with a couple YouTubers that I brought over here, just on their chat and YouTube. I'm like, hey, you should go check this out. If you do, I'll hook you up. So they came over, set up an account. I sent them a bunch of tokens and got a lot of people over here onto Minds, by doing that, and then got to know them, because I'm sending them tokens. I'd send them back then like 100 tokens to just help them get started, which today would be like a ridiculous amount to send to someone, but back then it wasn't. So
yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, that was back when we could make like 20 a day. So I'm like, here's a week's worth of tokens. Don't be And so that was really helpful. I got on Ovation Eddie was one of the first people, and the Trump Fan Network, if you know who that is. His name is JP. Pretty good, YouTube channel. But again, I wanted to get those guys on because they had both lost their main channels with like 40, 50, 100,000 people and had to rebuild and start over and go through all that process. So I thought it'd be, interesting from a censorship standpoint to speak with them and just hear what they had to say. And of course it was fantastic. I even did a roundtable with those two guys and with Josh Hu as well, who is a good friend of mine now. Been doing podcasts with him for a year and a half or so. And he, again, I was one of the people I think who helped bring him over to Minds and, get him started with tokens and the whole 9 yards. So I did that for a while. And then one day I did a roundtable with veterans. I wanted to bring in 3 veterans and go through a complete roundtable with them and talk about their experiences and whatnot. And one of the people that I brought on was Dragus Productions, and he is a producer who runs about 4 different radio shows. And he has a slot open on Sunday nights every other week and asked me if I'd like to have a radio show. So I said, absolutely. And one of the first things I did is I called up Josh and said, hey, Josh, I've got a radio show. Would you like to be my co-host? And he, of course, said yes. I brought on, I can't remember the exact order, but also Rizzo, If you know Yo Rizzo on Minds.com, another great friend of the show and a great friend of mine, who's just a great guy, really funny. And we also brought on Yotivation Nation and Willie Lee. We're kind of the original crew. Willie Lee V is the crazy worm farmer that we have a half-hour segment with him every week. And I remember the first time we did that, I mean, we were all just on the floor rolling, laughing so hard because Willie's just such a funny guy.
Yeah, for sure.
He is. And his worm farm is excellent. Everything he does is just perfect. You know, we've had so many storylines with him. It's hard to even keep track of them all, you know, but he's done so much stuff with us over the last couple of years that I can't thank him enough. And then recently in the last year or so, we brought on David Hogg as well, who is minds.com/David Hogg, not the David Hogg, but a parody of David Hogg. And
Yes.
he's brought so much to the show. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I've got a radio show I do every Sunday night for 2 hours and every Wednesday night for 2 hours as well. The Sunday show is at 9 p.m. Eastern and the Wednesday show is at 6 p.m. Eastern. And on Wednesdays, I tend to bring on a guest where I do a one-on-one interview with them for the first hour. Last week I had freedom fighter Victor on, and boy, did he do a phenomenal job. I really felt for a while like I was talking to like a young Alex Jones. You know, he was just so good. Yeah. And, you know, we've just had on so many different guests, you know, on that as well, that it's been just a phenomenal process to get to know all these people and, you know, fill up 4 hours of actual radio time on terrestrial radio stations in about 4 or 5 different major markets that, you know, has an audience in the many tens of thousands. It's pretty cool. Heck, I've had you on there once.
Yeah, you've had me on a few times, 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I would, you know, describe who I am and how I got to where I am, I guess. And then, you know, my news channel, I post a lot of just the daily news. I mean, every single day of my life forever, as long as I can remember, I wake up in the morning and just read the news, you know, see what's going on in the world. And now I find I have a place to sort of share that information with everyone else, make some comments on what's going on, you know, in each article and whatnot. And, you know, people give feedback and we have conversations and it's just a good time. Mm-hmm. So it's one of the things I do. And then I also, you know, share a lot of memes. I go through and, you know, share a lot of other people's content to help them get more likes as well, and i.e. more tokens. So tend to do that. And really just the coolest thing about Minds is for a lot of people, y'all have like interactions with people. But for me, I've spent an hour at a pop with, like I say, a couple hundred different users here on Minds. So I know a lot of people really, really, really well. Like Fretz Capo was one of the very first people I interviewed. And what a phenomenal guy. You know, he and I spoke for, I think, 2.5, 3 hours prior to me even hitting the record button and recording that interview. Yeah. So we had just a phenomenal time. And, you know, it's so different when you actually speak to the people, you know them across the board. I just can't tell you how many people I actually know here on Minds, not just like know their avatar and what they post. I know them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was going to ask you about that. Do you deliberately go out to attract a certain demographic, a certain type of person, or are the people that you meet friends?
You mean as far as like interview subjects, or as far as like how my channel is targeted to?
Yeah, I guess how your channel is targeted.
My channel is targeted for just like whatever the heck I want to do. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I don't really care what anybody thinks. It's my channel. I can post on it whatever I want. Right. Like, I think everybody kind of feels that way. So I don't put myself in any box. If you like my content, you like my content. Mm. You know, and I built up 20,000+ subscribers here on Minds. So
yeah, I saw.
You know,
20,000 and 2 million views.
20 million, I think. Yeah. So, a lot of views. I mean, 20-some million+ views. That's incredible. But it also goes to show you, like, in the early days, I spent a lot of tokens promoting my channel.
Right.
And I knew one day they would be worth a lot of money. I knew one day in the future, they would be worth something. And I still spent them, you know, the max I could every single day to promote my channel and promote different people and promote articles or, you know, anything that was going on. But that really paid off now because it's helped me to grow to a point where, you know, I get a lot of interactions on my posts. So it was well worth it.
Yeah, I noticed also in your channel that your one or two of your early shows were banned. How did you get banned?
One or two of my early shows were banned. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. Where would they banned?
Banned from Minds. I don't know.
I have not seen that. I would have to go back and look and see if like some of my early interviews are banned. I've never come across that, but if you can send me a link to that, I'd love to see that somewhere.
You've got that description where it says, "There's your about." Look. Oh, episode 7 banned on YouTube.
Oh yeah. That was that.
Episode 2 banned from Minds! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. With Ovation, Eddie, Medworthy, and Xander.
Okay, yeah, that was Ovation Eddie. Again, I brought him over to Mines and set him up and, gave him a pat on the back and said, welcome, to the team and all that stuff. So all of a sudden one day he calls me up and says, dude, I'm banned.
From
right? Yeah. So I'm like, dude, what's going on here? So I reached out to Xander, who was an admin at that time. He was a head of Q&A, quality assurance for Mines. And Medworthy, who is the head of Makosi, the Mines Community Open Source Initiative, and Ovation Eddie, and we brought everyone together and had a roundtable like the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one day Ovation Eddie's banned. The next day he's doing a roundtable with myself and the head of quality assurance for Mines.
Right.
Xander, right? So immediately he was reinstated, and Xander sat down with us for an hour to talk about how that happened, why it happened, and how quick they were to recognize that it was a mistake and fix it. Okay, so yeah, that was frustrating. But then Ovation Eddie, on the other hand, saw that within a day he was talking with one of the, the lead people at Mines, and everything was fixed with an apology and
wow,
all the embarrassment that went along with it. So that's what that episode was about. Banned from Mines. I'm looking at it right now with Ovation Eddie, Medworthy, and Xander.
Okay.
And no, that was actually a really good thing for the Mines community. In other words, it showed that they're not just going to indiscriminately ban someone like Ovation Eddie. And if you guys don't know who he is, he's a YouTuber who makes videos with like Seinfeld clips going back and forth, maybe with, maybe Jen Psaki talking about some crazy thing and putting her foot in her mouth, and then he'll switch back to Kramer going, whoa, like how that happened. So he makes really tame, with Batman and stuff like that. It's nothing that would be banned.
Right.
But, so it happened, but it was fixed. And then the other one you mentioned, banned on YouTube, episode 7, was the one I was talking about earlier with Ovation Eddie Seeking the Truth,
right,
and the Trump Fan Network, about how they had all been banned from YouTube in one way or another.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I saw was episode 1, the very birth.
Yeah, those are some really phenomenal, people on Minds. Lucilant is very outspoken. If he doesn't like something, he's going to say it. And I think he butts heads with Ottman and those guys a lot because of that. Willie, of course, is just a fantastic guy. Mm-hmm. And Walrus Malone is as well, although he's been sort of touch and go with Minds over the last year or so. I'm not sure how active he is right now.
These guys were in the original shitposting group, weren't they? Is that where you guys all met? Or was that knew each other already and you hung out there?
Yeah, Meme Supreme brought a lot of us together, but that one in particular, Lucilant is more of like a developer. He's not so much of a shit poster. Walrus Malone definitely is. Willie definitely is. But Lucilant is more of, tech guy. He's looking into the, TOS and the code and all that kind of stuff. And he's sort of on that level with sort of like a Mark, who I mentioned before.
Yes. So, let's look at you and politics, because it's not just news. It's kind of like really political stuff that you're interested in, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's it's such an important part of society today. They always say, like, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is very interested in you. And in America, everything is so upside down. The last few years have been just nothing short of a disaster here, and it's only getting worse. I mean, it really, really, there's a lot of people. I think 75% of the country wants to enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which is like saying we want to go to war with Russia and start World War III. And, you look at Iran shooting missiles down into the U.S. consulate in Iraq. You look at what China and Taiwan could potentially do. China's already sensing weakness here and looking at, they're sending patrols of fighter jets over Taiwan airspace and, testing the waters to see how everyone reacts. And it's scary stuff.
It is.
Without a doubt. We're on the verge, potentially, of World War III right now, as bad as that could be. And, if you think gas is expensive now, wait till that kicks off. We'll be looking at $12, $15 a gallon.
Yeah. And food will be a problem as well.
Yeah, food's going to be a problem over the next year, no matter what. Russia has banned the export of fertilizers to Western countries, and without fertilizers, we're screwed.
Yeah.
With gas prices the way they are and everything, you combine all that together, and by the end of the summer, man, things could get really, really ugly. Wheat's already up, from $3 to $13 or something.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have a projection of how you think that the conflict is going to go?
Not really. It's hard to say. I think everyone's so unpredictable at this point that it's really difficult to, kind of predict how things are going to go, because the people in charge are, in other words, just today I read an article that, the Democrat Party is in such desperate shape for the midterms that they might actually see war as a potential way for them to get more voters. If they're a war party that's in power running World War III, they typically don't change the guards in the middle of a war kind of thing. So they might do it just to secure the elections, which wouldn't surprise me at all. I would put nothing beneath how far these people can go in their quest for wealth or power.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? So it's very interesting because it's capitalism against communism. But so much of the discourse in America has been over communism and over people who are trying to bring communism be able to take hold in America. And what would that do for your relationships with China? Do you think that it would become like a Chinese colony?
Well, we are, we call ourselves a democracy, which of course we've never been a democracy. We're a republic. And the problem, though, is that we are sort of I don't know, they throw the word fascism around, but what is fascism other than, the corporations controlling the government and sort of working hand in hand to benefit themselves? And America today is without a doubt in a situation where large corporations have way too much power. There's 3 or 4 people that own all the news in America.
Yes.
And they're all pretty much radical far left. We've got all the social media sites, the big mainstream media sites that are suppressing information left and right that is later proving to be true all over the place.
Yeah.
And they just don't like it at the time. At the time, they're saying this isn't true, but it might be true later. We don't know, but you're jumping the gun here. And so they, have way, way, way too much power. And so we're in a position right now where we're really not truly where we should be as a free society. We are in a situation where big corporations control everything. I mean, look at the power that Big Pharma had over the last year or so. Yeah. They were able to mandate these vaccines. Even now, the head of Pfizer was on the TV the other day asking for everyone to get their 4th booster shot because the first 3 don't work.
What?
Right?
Really?
And they're, he's saying, well, yeah, we're going to need a 4th one because, the 3rd one is waning and on and on and on. But at the end of the day, he's seeing dollar signs. I mean, Fauci came out a day later and agreed with them and said, yep, we need more shots for everybody. And I don't want to, I think that's short-sighted and stupid. And we're putting ourselves in a position where these companies they have no liability. They have carte blanche to mandate if you don't get the vaccine, you can't go outside. In New York City and Washington, D.C. for a while there, they had the passports. You had to show that you were vaccinated to be able to go and sit down for lunch somewhere. Yeah. That is to the point where those monopolies, Pfizer, these big pharma companies are so deep into the pockets of the politicians that they will do whatever they say. And so if they say, hey, you know, this experimental vaccine, let's mandate it for you to be able to go outside, the politicians will say, sure, you know, show me the money and I'll do it in a heartbeat. And, you know, where's that money, man? Just look at all the money that they're making from insider trading and whatnot over the last couple of years. It's an embarrassment to the United States, quite frankly.
Yes, it really is. It's very frightening.
Yeah. So to answer your question, though, can Chinese type actual communism come into the United States? I think that it would, in ways, it's already here in a lot of ways. I mean, look at the critical race theory that's being taught in school, you know, the BLM stuff, the 1619 Project. There are so many things out there that are just, they're pure indoctrination. And kids coming out of school today are seeing, you know, ask them how many branches of government we have, and they can't tell you. Ask them who's suppressing them, and they can tell you in a heartbeat that it's the white man or it's cisgender or whatever, you know. And so there's this division that's occurring in society, and a lot of people out there really want these sort of mandates and controls. They just don't realize how dangerous it is, I think. And the other thing they don't realize is that their vision of the future, their vision of this, you know, idealistic communist society that America could be if they tear down the Constitution and build a new one, will look nothing like what they envision in their head. It will not be the utopian envision that they think it'll be. It'll be some awful, god-awful dictatorship. And they think that they're going to be, you know, there's that meme you see out there where it's like, hey, I want to be a, you know, hey, comrade, I'm ready to go and, you know, make quilts and stuff and farm my land and do all this stuff in the new utopia. And it's like, no, you go crush those rocks over there. Right?
Yeah.
Go crush rocks or go, you know, work in the mines and yada, yada, yada. But no, your dream job and your dream little world that you envision in the future of some sort of a communist America will be nothing like you envision. It'll be horrible.
So this is an interesting question to me, and I'm sure you have got a good perspective of it. Why does communism not work? I think that the thing that people like about communism, it looks really good on paper. It's all very idealistic work, and it doesn't work everywhere. It
starves people in a lot of ways of their motivation to get up and go do something. You look at China and the success that they've had, and it's mostly because they have one of the freest economies. They have one of the most capitalist economies out there when it comes down to the street level. You know, if you want to set up a business there and sell iPhones or whatever, it's very easy. You can do it under the table for the most part and just do it. No one's really going to stop you or go after you. They don't have the wherewithal to enforce any of that. So in a lot of ways, they really are more capitalist than we are. Whereas, why doesn't it work? See, it's in the truest sense, it'll rob people of their ambitions. Even now, with the tax rates as high as they are in the United States, I don't have a lot of ambition to go out and make the most of myself because it all goes to government and accountants and, you know, lawyers, and then you get sued and, you know, on and on and on. It's just not really worth it to try to prosper even in American society today, the way I see it. I just kind of run under the radar and live my life, but I don't go out and try to hit home runs. When I was in my 20s, I was extremely successful and made tons of money and realized that it's just a rat race.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
it's just a rat race. You wake up at 6, 7 a.m. and leave the office at 8, 9 p.m. and, you know, work 12, 15 hours a day and do that every single day. And, you know, yeah, you make a ton of money and you're rolling, you're out there spending, you know, $200 on a Saturday night to go have fun with the boys. And, you know, it just doesn't, in the long run, get you anywhere.
Yes.
You know, to try to one up and compete against all your buddies and be the successful dude and all that kind of, you know, it's not the race I want to be in, because you're never going to win that race.
Yeah.
And the amount that you have to give up to the government and everything now, I mean, living in California, you're paying over 50% tax rates at this point.
Wow.
In New York,
Really?
New York State too. Yeah. And at what point does slavery come back? And, you know, at 70, 80, 90%, you'd have to say that's getting pretty close to being slavery levels when you keep 10% of what you make.
Yeah.
Right.
Shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything over 50% is pretty much bordering. That's the tipping point for me, where it turns into, you know, you're not working for you, you're working for the government, who then has absolutely no respect for the money you send them
Yeah.
and will just piss it away on pork projects, on whatever their friends and family, it's just pissed away. Of every dollar that they try to put into the hands of needy people in America, maybe 10% makes it there. Maybe they get a dime, and 90% goes to pad the wallets of the fat cats along the way who distribute and manage all that stuff. Education is the same way. Look at how bloated our school system is here. I'm not sure if it's the same way in New Zealand, but in the United States, there's like the administrators are making all this money. They're not teaching. They're just cogs in the wheel that slow things down and make it worse. Whereas, you look at each student in America, they're spending something like, I think, $20,000 per student. So you give me 10 kids, and a budget of $200,000 to teach them for the year. I'm going to be doing trips to Washington, D.C. We're going to take a trip to, we could go to Paris, right? With that kind of money. I could take the whole class to Paris for a week and teach, take them to the Louvre and all that stuff and let them see it all firsthand with that kind of huge amounts of money. And instead, we're getting, like Baltimore, but like nobody is even proficient in schools there. I think 80% are not proficient at their grade level.
Gosh.
And in major cities all over the place. We're seeing it left and right. The school system is failing our kids worse than they ever could imagine. And they don't even know it because they think they're smart. They think they're smarter than your mom and dad, right? They think they know more, and dad's just a cisgender, whatever, bigot. And, we saw that case where the January 6th, I forget his name, but the FBI went to his kid who was some, woke whatever that was indoctrinated by the school system. And the kid, took a microphone into his house and recorded his dad, saying all this stuff when he had a couple beers in him and all that kind of, really made him look bad. And then he testified against him this last week. And now the father was guilty on all 5 counts. And he sat there and cried in court as his son testified against him. And he's looking at 60 years or something. It's horrific. It's absolutely astonishing what levels they can stoop to,
And yet there is a revolution going on. What do you think of the lobster revolution? Do you think that it could solve these issues, these divisions in families?
The lobster revolution? I don't know if I've heard of that.
Jordan Peterson. Jordan. Yeah, the first chapter, stand up straight or something, be a lobster.
Okay. I think the solution for the future is just education. I think we all need to sit back and see what these policies are doing. A classic example is a lot of people, voted for Joe, even though he came out and said, hey, I'm going to shut down oil production. We're going to put an end to it. All the subsidies are gone. We're going to stick it to the oil companies. Okay, so great. So you vote for that. Now your gas has gone up 3x in the last couple of years. Right. And you're at a point where you're saying, wait a minute. I think that's what wakes people up is when, a gallon of milk costs $10 and a gallon of gas costs $10. They're not going to stand for that. They're going to be really, really upset about it and start seeing through just how bad things are and understanding that we've got a president who has late stage dementia, right? And our vice president is really no better. I would not feel better getting the old senile man out and putting Kamala Harris in charge. I just would feel that we almost took a step back at that point, And so I really think everyone's going to start waking up really quickly. I mean, look at the polls, 70% negative for where Biden is now. I think his positives are in the mid 30s, which going into this election in November, representatives up for a vote, That's why they call it the people's house, because, that's where the rubber hits the road the fastest. Every couple of years, they, turn over the whole thing. And everyone has to defend their seats. And I think a lot of people are I think it's going to be a gigantic red wave if we can keep enough people in the polling places to monitor everything and watch it and call them out when shenanigans happen.
Yes.
In 2020, we didn't care. Nobody even cared, and they just let them do whatever they want. And this time around, we have to have monitors in the polling places. We have to have a microscope over everything, or it's just going to be a repeat of 2022 where, you go to bed at night and you think it's a landslide. And then you wake up in the next morning and you find out, oh, no, they found all these millions of votes in the middle of the night. So,
yes.
Yeah. no landslide. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. It was something else. So do you?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, that's just a silly sort of the intellectual dark web, I mean, okay, great. If you want to, I'm sure people would put me in there, but I'm really, for me, I'm just talking about mainstream common sense ideas every day that I see reported on all the time. It's not like I'm bringing up things that are so far out there and wacky and I'm some sort of a dark web, No. It's
meaning more like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, the guys that aim, they, like you were saying, education is in such a bad way. But you have these very, very intelligent men who have taken their wisdom and their teaching onto the internet and created this sort of little corner where people go to find out what's real.
I think, when I listen to what's going on, when I listen to other broadcasters and whatnot, the one that I really would like to emulate as best as possible, if I could just have his talents and everything, I would be at the top of my game, of course.
Okay.
But that would be Mark Levin. Mark Levin is one of the radio hosts that I listen to the most and really respect. And I think a lot of what we talk about is very similar to what he's talking about. He's a little bit more, I guess, war hawkish on say Ukraine than I am. I look at Ukraine and I think we don't know anything about what's going on. I think all the news is completely fabricated and made up to whoever's agenda is out there. That's what we're hearing. Whereas, we do our show and then I hear some of the things we talk about and then I listen to Tucker Carlson and he's saying the same things. So I think at the time I'm like, man, we talked about some edgy stuff tonight, but then I go on Tucker Carlson, he's saying the exact same stuff. So is Tucker Carlson dark web?
I mean, obviously he's got a mainstream job, but he seems to have the sort of ethos of the movement.
Is Mark Levin dark web? You know what I mean?
Okay. I get what you're saying. Okay.
Right. So in other words, I don't think I would be that fringe or anything, but I think, the people that define this stuff and who actually make up the terms like dark web are the ones that would probably, put me squarely in that. I mean, they had Tim Pool at the host of all that, at the middle of all that stuff, right?
Yes.
I mean, is Tim Pool some fringe guy? No.
Oh, but do you think that the deep web is fringe? I think that it's pretty mainstream now for a certain, group of people. There are people who have never owned a TV and would never turn one on. They only get their information off the web.
Yeah, I think it's just semantics. And if you talk to someone on the left, they would probably say that I'm far right. But when I look at where I'm at, I don't think I'm far right at all. I think I'm pretty moderate in a lot of things. I mean, but to some degree, I'm pretty pro-abortion in in a lot of cases. I think, the 16-week rules, I think, can make sense after 16 weeks. If you haven't, figured out that you want an abortion or not, you need to figure it out.
Yes.
Right. You can't wait until the 9th month and then think that it's moral to have an abortion when, you're 3 days from delivery. I think most Americans would find that repulsive.
Absolutely. Yes.
Abortion in the 9th month. I think, heck, I even saw some proposal for 28 days after birth. You can, think about it. And if there's some problem with your child and they might have Down syndrome or something, you can abort them after birth. I mean, that to me is repulsive. And I think 99% of the population out there would consider that repulsive and disgusting.
Yes.
But yet we had the previous governor of Virginia on talking about just that. His name eludes me. We're going to make it comfortable and then we're going to have the conversation. And that is disgusting. And that's why, was it Youngkin won by such a landslide? Because people heard that and they thought it was repulsive. And so that is not, to me, some sort of a radical thing at all. I'm pretty moderate when it comes to that. If you want to have an abortion in the first trimester, I think that should be legal. In the second, I think it's pushing immoral. And the third, I think it's pure evil. And, jail time should almost be on the table at that point.
Yes. Yes. So completely agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. And I think most Americans feel that way. I think we should have a balanced budget. We shouldn't be running these massive, crazy deficits, especially when, as I said earlier, the money just goes to the wind. We don't see any results from any of it. I mean, they spent all this trillions and trillions of dollars for what? Do we have new roads? Do we have new anything? Do you see any thing out there that you could point to and say the money was spent on this?
Yeah,
No.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
It just goes into the wind, and the people on the inside get richer and richer, and everyone else gets nothing.
Yes.
Except more taxes, more debt. And, heck, we're at a point now where the debt in the United States, think about it. We're at $30 trillion, and they're saying inflation is at 8%, right? Let's say it was at, just to make the math easy, let's say it was at 10%.
Yes.
10% of 30 trillion is 3 trillion a year in interest alone. And we just had a record year where I think we brought in 1.8 trillion this year as a country. Yeah. So we're spending close to double what we bring in every year.
Yes.
And that can't last. Once that interest kicks in, America's going to have to tighten their belt. They're going to have to give up a lot of these, pork projects, like all of them, Social Security and Medicaid and some of the basic things that are needed. Everything else is just going to have to go to the sideline so we can pay interest on the debt for eternity. So what we're leaving to our next generation is disgusting. And not only that, but we're teaching them to resent everyone that came before them so that they can then look at it and say, oh, well, it's those horrible parents of ours that put us in this position. Yeah. And they won't be wrong. They won't be wrong. People say Social Security is sort of it's guaranteed. I paid into it. Well, you paid into it, but you also voted in people who spent all that money a long time ago.
Yes.
So, if it's not there for you, I'm sorry, you voted for these people. And no, I don't think it's a guarantee. I think that you'll be lucky. I'll be very, very lucky if I see a dime from Social Security.
Wow. I feel that about New Zealand too. I think everybody in the world is starting to look at the future and thinking there isn't anything there for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sad state. And again, when they teach these kids the critical race theory, the critical theory has been around forever. It's really, the core of the Bolsheviks and all those guys when they were fighting back in the day in first implementing communism in Russia. They divided everyone by class. And they said, hey, these rich people are here to, screw you. And we as the people need to rise up, take control of the means of production, and then we can prosper and do great. Well, they all ended up starving and having a horrible life because nobody, it's like when there's a piece of land somewhere that everybody owns, then everybody owns it and no one really has any stake in it. If there's garbage lying around everywhere, who cares? It's garbage. Who's going to clean it up? I don't care. Just let the government do it.
Yes.
Right. But when it's your land and there's garbage all over it, you're going to go out with a bag and pick it all up and keep it clean and looking good because it's your land. You're invested in it. So that's kind of, where the problem with communism comes from to a large degree is no one has that stake in they own the means of productions, but they really don't. They're one arm removed from it. And the people in power have all the control still anyway. So, do you think Bill Gates in this new post-communist world that they dream of, do you think he's going to be some poor guy working next to you in the mine taking rock, or do you think he's going to be out there, dictating on high what everyone can and can't do, and how many vaccines they need? And now the vaccines aren't sort of super mandatory; they're 100% mandatory, and we've got a device to track you through all of life. Your social credit score they talk about. It's horrifying. If all that stuff comes together and suddenly, you like they do in China, you can't take an airplane if you said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Or
or send your kids to school. Yeah. So do you think that blockchain technology has a role to play in producing an alternative sort of administrative and financial system for the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it could be implemented in a lot of ways that would really help the world. I've been hearing talk about voting via blockchain, how it can be done and it can be controlled to a level with transparency and everything that really just can't be hacked. And that is an interesting concept. But when you talk about the financial markets, of course, we've got Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that, which are just dominating the world right now. They are, to me, in a lot of ways, they're the future for sure. What form, though? Because they're going to have to start competing pretty soon against government
Tether. Yes.
Yeah. So if the U.S. government tries to get into that market and do it, then you're going to find, like they did in China, they can put into it little implementations saying, we need to stimulate the economy. So here's your paycheck. It expires in 2 weeks when you get your next one. So if you don't spend every penny of it, it'll just disappear. Right. So if you were planning on saving some of that and stocking away for the future, you can't do it. Right. At least not this month. In the future, we'll let you do that maybe. But, so they can do things like that, which Bitcoin would never, ever in a million years have built into it or get built into it. So the transparency with a community-owned cryptocurrency versus one that is issued by a government is night and day. And so we're going to have to eventually compete against those government-issued cryptos, which will be very, very hard. And I don't know, man. What if they give us a window and say, get rid of all your Bitcoin, buy the American, coin, and then you can keep your money. But otherwise, no, it goes away. We're going to, because governments think they can do that.
Yeah,
right?
They do. But the tokens are a cryptocurrency, aren't they? Don't you think that we already have our own economy on mines that the government can't touch?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, they can't touch it. It's, it depends how you set everything up on mines. If you are truly on there to be anonymous, you can be, and the government really can't touch you. However, if you set up like autopay or you've used a credit card to buy Mines Plus or things like that, then there are ways to track your account back to you.
Yes.
So people need to be aware of that on mines.com, that it is anonymous. They really don't know who you are. If you just show up and start posting one day, there's no way they'll know who you are. But the minute you pull out that credit card to get Mines Plus, then now it's forever known who you are.
But you would get to a place where you would not have a credit card at all. I mean, you wouldn't need to buy tokens. You could pay, technically, they could develop a system where you would pay in tokens instead of having to use, and particularly if we go away from fiat altogether. There would be no point in buying anything because the tokens would buy everything.
Yeah, and Mines is moving towards having a marketplace in the future where that will be an availability. I mean, it's already happening. I know there are some channels like Blanca Art that will take tokens for her art, and she'll mail you, new pieces every month and whatnot. And I want to give a shout out to her because she's fantastic. I love her art; they're so cute. And
she's got very sweet stickers.
Yes, the government hates you.
I
love that one. It's this cute little bunny with these flowers, and it just says, "The government hates you."
Cute. It is too cute.
So, it's kind of moving to that. I've bought, commissions for art. If you look at my header and my avatar on Mines.com, I bought those from Curry Hobo with tokens. I think I gave him 200 tokens or so to make those. And, they're fantastic. Now he's doing, I was just noticing before we got started here, he's working with something called Supermind to sell NFTs. And one of the NFTs they have is allows you to get Plus and Pro as part of ownership. Yeah, so if you own the NFT, you can get Plus and Pro.
Yeah, that's a good idea, you see. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, now they're asking 2 Ether for that, so that's a lot of money.
$8,000.
Well, yeah, I think right now it's about $2,600, so about a little over 5.
Oh, really?
At least US dollars.
Okay.
You're probably talking New Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So, neat things like that are coming out. Seeing how, like, even another buddy of mine was talking about another NFT you could buy that he was making like $6 a day just holding. Not bad.
Have you thought of minting your shows as NFTs? And if you have, how much would you sell a show for?
I haven't really considered that. That to me is like, I don't even know. Like, if I sold one of my shows, now somebody owns that show forever?
Well, it depends on what you decide. It's like the Mona Lisa, Somebody owns the Mona Lisa, but everybody in the world gets to look at it. So it's ownership. It's not availability.
I don't know. I that to me seems like it's kind of pushing it.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah, like it's just sort of trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. But I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to watch the marketplace a little bit more. If there's a market for that kind of stuff, I mean, what would someone pay for that? I wouldn't even have any idea.
Oh, it's interesting on OpenSea. They have NFTs there up to 10 Ethereum, I've seen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen some of these things go for crazy amounts of money.
Yeah.
And more power to them. I mean, if they can get that kind of cash, more power to you. But I don't know if that could possibly work. It'd be an interesting thought, but I don't know. I'd have to see it play out.
It's like when you have the Beatles albums, you know, the vinyl albums. You don't do any.
That's a
Yeah,
very valuable asset.
So if you could interview anybody in the whole world, who would you choose?
Oh wow, Daryl Davis would be right up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was listening last night to Bill Ottman and Daryl were on the Joe Rogan show.
Joe Rogan, that's going to be interesting. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I listened to it last night and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He would be just such an awesome person to have on the radio show and talk to. His history and everything, it's just really incredible. And then there's a lot of people out there that are sort of, it's really frustrating with Minds because they allow people to sort of post to Twitter and then repost to Minds.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you get a lot of people that they look like they're on Minds, but they're not.
Uh-huh.
And so if you reach out to them in the comments or something and say, hey, if I send you a DM, and I've wasted a lot of time doing that. And,
Yes.
I saw James Lindsay the other day. I reached out to him just a couple of days ago, and he would be an interesting person to have on. And he does seem to be on here. He was, thanking someone for a wire in one of his posts and things like that. So, yeah. So when I, find people on Minds that are actually on Minds, that's really, great. I reached out to him. Hopefully I'll hear back from him. Yeah, it's it's a lot of frustration. There's people like Blair White, Tim Pool, or anybody that's a co-host on the Tim Pool show would be phenomenal guests. And on and on and on. There's tons of people like that would be great, but it's just frustrating that they're not really here. It looks like they're here. You think they're here, but
Yes. Do you spread across other platforms, or is Minds your home?
Minds is my home. I have some presence on other sites, but like I have a BitChute and I had a library, and library was pretty good. I liked it, but then they changed over to Odyssey and I lost my password and all that crap. I'd have to figure out how to log back in there to Odyssey now.
Yeah.
And BitChute was frustrating because it was, I would upload hour-long plus videos there, and my upload success ratio was about probably 25%.
Oh, what a pain.
So yeah, you start uploading it, you wait, it says processing, so you have to come back in like a day, and then it says process failed, and you have to start over. And so it would take like sometimes 4, 5, 6 days to get a video up on BitChute, which just isn't worth it.
Not worth it, no.
So I lost interest there. As far as, like I said, Facebook or Twitter are concerned, I would, I wouldn't fit in over there. I'm sure I could get big followings and whatnot, but it would just be a matter of time until they deleted me. Same thing with YouTube. The topics that we talk about on the radio, it's really funny. The radio, the rules are really opposite of what they are on, say, YouTube. On YouTube, you can swear all you want, but you can't talk about certain subjects. You can't say, hey, you can't ask the question, who shut down the counting in 6 states at 4 a.m?
Wow. Yeah.
Right. You can't question that and have an hour-long show talking about it, because they'll just take it right down immediately. Whereas they let you talk like a sailor, no problem. Whereas on the radio, I can't talk like a sailor at all. I got to really watch my language because we've got, kids and everything out there listening to it.
Yes.
Yet I can talk about whatever I want, which is cool,
What has been your most fun? What has been your most absolute, the high point of your life in terms of your interviews that you've done so far?
Yeah. I would probably say some of the times that we've had with Willie doing the Worm Farm stuff, with Yotivation Nation, is Aunt Mama Lou. I do Saul Good.
Yes.
And we've got Hansel on there, David Hogg. We've had some really, really funny times, like where we finish that segment and everybody, we go to break and everyone's just bawling their eyes out, just laughing as hard as they can during the break because it was so fun, So I would say those have been some of the most fun times. The highlights, sitting down with Bill Ottman was a big one.
Right.
I think, having, a chance to interview him a couple times was phenomenal. I think my channel and everything picked up a lot of credibility when I can have, him or a John or someone come on, and then, other Minds users look and they're like, oh, we did an interview with John and Bill, and so let me go listen to some of those and see what I'm getting into here. And then they listen to it and find out it's going to be pretty cool, So I think that gives me some credibility. And they were also just an honor, it's really an honor to be able to do an interview with someone like Bill, say 2 weeks after he did Joe Rogan.
Oh, yes. Just, yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely. Like, dang, you're going from Joe Rogan to me. Like, come on, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you must be quite a role model for anybody new starting out on Minds.
I would hope so.
Yeah. What advice would you give for a new person on how to build up a channel? Because you've done that fairly successfully in 4.5 years. 20 million views is not bad.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, I bought a lot of those views with tokens, right? So that's how many tokens I spent. Organically, I probably had 7, something like that. So another, 12 of those are probably days. Yeah, use those tokens to promote your channel. Make some sort of a banner, of a meme, some fun, cool thing that says, "Hey, subscribe to me," and boost it. Boost it all the time. Keep it pinned to the top of your feed. That's what I did for a long time. With a picture of Kermit Frog saying, "F you, I won't do what you tell me."
Yes.
And then my caption below it would be, "Subscribe to me." So it's like,
yeah.
And that one, I got so much traction out of that one. I was boosting it for years, and it really, every time I boosted, I'd pick up a bunch more subscribers, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But also be yourself. Be true to who you are. Don't try to fit into some sort of what you think people want. Just be yourself, and you'll find people are more interested in that than they are some vision of what you think you should be.
Mm.
And also interact. The biggest things for new channels to do is join some groups, some good groups that are active, and post on subject content to those groups, like a Meme Supreme, or Meme Wars. You can go to either one of those and post a good meme. Right. And people will like it and they'll subscribe to you because they'll say, "Who is this guy? He's, put 4 awesome memes in here today. Who is he?" Right? Let me subscribe to him. And so you're not only just like, if you have 10 subscribers, you're only going to get a maximum potential of 10 people to see something you post on your timeline. But if you post it into some of the bigger groups, and again, like Brett's Capo, I mentioned him before. He's got tons of big groups with tens of thousands of people in each one of them. And so, you go into his 70s music thing and you start interacting with people on point. You don't want to go in there and start talking about stuff that's completely out of, the 70s music thing. If the 70s music thing is of interest to you, go in there and post, and you'll get much more traction on a post than you would if you just put it to your timeline.
Yes.
So
right.
Those are a couple other things. And then, other than that, yeah, just be you. Be you, be true to yourself, and the people will come. As long as you're not a total prick.
Yeah, that would help. Well, that was a really fantastic talk today. My mind has gone through so many different thoughts that it's just so interesting to talk to you and listen to all your experiences and see where you've been. Mm-hmm. I'd just like to thank you very, very much indeed for your time and all your insight. It's really good to speak to you.
It's my pleasure. Again, people always say it, but that went by really quick.
Yeah, it did. I still have things that I want to find out from you. So maybe we can do it again one day.
Sure. Yeah, we're almost up to an hour. I mean, I just looked down at my clock. I couldn't believe how quickly that went. So, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I've interviewed so many people, and this is the first time someone's really reached out to me to say, let's do a one-on-one, interview for an hour. So thank you so much. It's quite an honor. Thank you. And I love what you're doing, by the way. I really like the fact that you're out. I mean, how many interviews have you done now?
A few. I haven't counted. Not so many. Maybe 20. But
wow, that many.
Yeah, but I make a video every day. I try to make 10 minutes a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I really a lot of respect for you. It's a daunting task to try to build that up. But once you get the momentum and you start doing like one a week for a while, before you know it, you've got so many under your belt that it's secondhand, you know. I remember at first I would sit down for like an hour or two and prepare and write like 2 pages, 3 pages of notes. I was going to interview someone, so I would brainstorm and write all these questions down, and then I would go back and organize them onto a new sheet of paper and, you know, have it all lined out. And, you know, I've done so many of them now that I have an interview this afternoon and I haven't done a 1 minute of preparation for it, and I probably won't, because I go off the top of my head and just kind of roll with it nowadays. So you'll see the evolution yourself, and it's fun to watch that progression happen.
Yeah. It is. Thank you very, very much indeed. And
My pleasure.
hope you have an awesome show this afternoon.
We will. 6:00 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday, 9:00 every Sunday night for 2 hours each. The Censorship Sucks Roundtable Radio Show. Go to my channel and you'll see that I typically have pinned up there all the places that you can hear it. So yeah, check it out.
Brilliant. Yes, do. Go over, guys. It's really worth it. See you again. Goodbye. Thank you for listening. To support me in my ventures, please subscribe, tip, and remind my content here on Minds.com. If you're not yet a member of Minds, hop on over and set up your own free and uncensored channel. Remember to come back next week to catch the next in the series Bobbing Along from @BobDub on Minds.com. This has been a Bobcat production. And until next time, so long. Bobbing, bobbing along, bobbing along, bobbing.